Tashram, who has been applying himself to the spike and the hammering with religious zeal. The locked door pops open.
Oh, time order, thank you.
2 feathers waft through it before you can see anything else. They look like chicken feathers.
Where do you say waft through the door?
Waft through the crack as the door sort of, as you force the lock, the door sort of springs open about half an inch, proud of its frame, and through the gap, out into your face, waft 2 chicken feathers.
I do not breathe in. I attempt to shield myself against the door and try and open it, saying to the others, just in case there's bolts or something on the other side, and so that as the door comes open, whatever's on the other side will hopefully not be able to fire at us immediately or attack us immediately.
In other words, all 3 of you execute the holy sidestep to remain out of the line of fire of the door. And the door opens. And the most appalling smell of chickens, and more chickens reaches your nostrils. It's a sort of chicken dung smell that just grabs you by the back of the throat and squeezes. Other feathers waft, and you hear a chorus of cluckings, and you behold in front of you, well, you're looking into what is probably a huge room. Its ceiling probably 20 feet up, and its dimensions at least 60 by 60 feet. But it may, in fact, even be larger. It's hard to tell, because the room is utterly full of tall racks of open slat crates, all of them full of live chickens which are busy squawking, shedding feathers, and, of course, defecating. So right in front of you is an open space, perhaps 3 feet deep, and then a rack runs right across your field of vision. And from the sound, there are other racks beyond.
Doing a quick mental calculation, does it seem as if maybe once these chickens were all contained and have just very recently been released?
Oh, they're not released. They're all in cages.
Oh, they still are in the cages.
Oh, yeah, yes. The cages are stacked in a open warehouse shelving. You know, the sort that's metal bolt together. And except instead of solid metal shelves, they are sort of metal rack railings. And then fitted into them are wire, rectangular, brick-like wire cages, each with a couple of chickens in them. So that they form... Okay, and then there's at least 6 tiers up. From floor to up beyond. A lot of chickens here.
I look at the skull and Lash says to the skull, "Friends of yours?"
No, I don't keep such foul company. For I am death.
Good grief. Has the deal run out yet, Death? Can I bat you across the room with my hammer?
Hey! Swindling, twisting holy man. No, says Death. I expected no less from you. But...
We did make a deal.
Yes.
We made a deal. Alright, so... I'm relieved. Just, let's put it that way. I'm very glad it's not what I thought I was going to see you walking through this door.
You gotta feed the shark with something. Oh, says Death.
Yes, almost as if you knew.
Yes.
It's a good thing you're subtle, Death. It's a good thing you're subtle.
To save us a little bit of time, Def, do you think this room will, again, be trapped? I mean, I'd hope not, because you'd think if you had people coming in, taking chickens out of cages, feeding them to a shark, you'd not want them tripping and then losing their head.
Well, you gotta get ahead in this world, that's what I always say. And I am unliving proof of that.
I will play rounders with you. If you keep punning, I will.
Oh. Will you? Will you? The skull seems strangely excited by your kind offer.
Is there a way out?
Well, yeah. Tashram stepped forward across the threshold, the fool, so he can immediately see that he's now standing in about a 3-foot wide aisleway. It goes on his left. There is a blank stone wall. And the rack starts, and it runs right across in front of his nose, and it runs around 90 feet that way. And then it ends, and there is a blank stone wall there, but it ends about 3 feet shy of that blank stone wall, and he can obviously go around the end of the rack into another aisle that runs the other way, because a rack starts right at that wall to his right and runs back towards the wall on the left to end 3 feet shy of that. So there's rack after row after rack in rows, all of them full of squawking, crapping chickens.
Well, I'm going to do my very best to carefully move in, holding my nose, and seeing if I can A, see anything dangerous, and B, find any sort of exit.
You find your way from the aisle which your door opened into the next aisle, and then into the next aisle, and then you see that there are 4 aisles in all, and there's some sort of large open space, and it looks underground. It's like you're in a giant underground room that really looks like a warehouse cellar. The room reeks. The floor you're walking on is covered in spilled feed seed glued down by slippery chicken poop. And, that's all you can see unless or until you come around the last, run of chicken crates, floor to ceiling.
I say, I can't see any dangers so far, friends. And then I start looking at that floor, covered in so much rubbish. Is there any sign of disruption? For example, 7-8 people with boots who surely just came through here.
Everything underfoot is trampled. It looks like people walk here every day.
But there's no, footprints going off somewhere, or perhaps if... I'm thinking if they've stepped in stuff and then gone to a wall...
Lash is just going to walk forward and just... Hello, kids. I'm so sorry you're kept here. I'm so sorry you're kept in cages like this. I'm so sorry. I'm just passing through. I'm so sorry.
I didn't take you for some shaunty animal talker, Lash, before we went on this little adventure. Why do you care so much for these small creatures?
Well, I just,
I'm genuinely interested, Lashansa, as we have this brief moment of reprieve, the smell notwithstanding. What is it that compels you to converse, not that it was unhelpful, with man-eating eels, and in this case, chickens in cages?
As he says that, Lash is just also kind of slowly twirling about herself, just kind of really admiring the glow of the bless, because it's something that she hasn't really been accustomed to. She's like, I really need to learn this, but this is lovely. I like it. Well, it's a gift that I have always had. I don't know, it got made fun of a lot, but it helped me make friends.
You hear a chicken cage rattling right in front of you, Lash, as if somebody on the other side is trying to remove it.
I am going to peek and see if I can see who they are.
Oh, you know those people in the motley armor you saw before? One of them is pulling the chicken crate out of the rack to make a gap. And a second one, who can see your glow, is leveling a crossbow at you from about 3 feet away, the other side of the rack, and letting fly. Can I have a d20 roll?
Yes, as they do that, I will just absolutely counter that with a flame blade that's in my hand.
Okay.
That's a 5 with the bless.
Ah, okay. So you attempt to thrust flame into them as they attempt to empty a crossbow. Not a heavy crossbow, this is a light crossbow. Almost a crossbow gun, almost a dart gun, into your face. And what happens is, your flame blade doesn't have time to set that crossbow bolt on fire as it leaps at your face. But it gets there. It gets there. So, -2 hit points as it lays open your ear, your left ear, on its way past to pincushion a cage behind you and three chickens that are in that cage. And you notice something else, and so does Tashram, because he's up there with you, that beyond the cages is a gigantic open space, a huge room with pillars holding up its roof. It looks like it's carved out of solid bedrock. It's got a level floor, a ceiling 20 feet up. It's maybe 160 feet square, and there's a 30-foot wide ramp leading up out of it. The purpose of the ramp is immediately apparent because 16 empty wagons are parked on either side of the ramp, and one of these wagons has just burst into flame as it starts to roll right at you across the room. Rumble, 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 rumble. And almost as if somebody's pushing it. Rumble, rumble.
Luck, 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 luck. And I'm going to
Yes,
start
that is
opening,
the noise the chickens make.
Opening cages. I'm just going to start opening cages.
Okay. You're opening cages. The wagon is gathering speed.
Be lucky, kids. Be lucky. Yes. And I'm going to get out of the way.
Oh, where?
I'm going to try to avoid that wagon that's on fire coming at me by sidestepping it.
Dive behind Tashram. He dives behind us enough.
Tashram, you are up with Lashanta in the last aisle before the cages end. You can either go back the way you came, zigzagging, or you can charge forward towards these.
Forward.
Okay, you're charging forward.
Yeah, because if there's no room in between the aisle of the cages.
No, they're just 3 feet wide aisles. Yeah.
I'm gonna go forward and up.
Forward and up a cage, like up a rack?
Yeah.
Okay. Tashram? Being as Bralagar's hiding behind you.
Do I think if I created water above it, it would actually do anything at all?
Sure.
Yes, I will quickly cast Create Food and Water to spread it in the area of the flaming wagon, as either try and just not be in its direct path.
Coming out to where you can see the wagon and feel the fire, and cast Create Food and Water, and I presume you're going to light on the food and heavy on the water, or right above, or right above and in front of the wagon, so it runs into your little rain cloud. The downpour.
Yes, I'm thinking it probably won't extinguish the whole thing, but I'm hoping if it's like explosive or something, that it could at least buy us some time and maybe dampen the flame so it doesn't spread so wonderfully.
Okay, so you're doing that, and as you cast that, Bralagar, who is adroitly sliding in behind you, has time to do whatever Bralagar wants for a round, as the crossbows come at you all. So, Bralagar, what would you like to do?
Okay, if I'm aware of the mercenaries with their crossbows, I will, with a great bellow and still covered in the gore of my enemy, hoping that it might help intimidate them, because it's not often that a blood and guts-drenched warrior priest charges you. I bellow, "For Tempest!" and try and crush some skulls with my trusty hammer.
Bralagar steps out from behind Tashram not wanting to ruin his spell, and charges across this big open room, going straight towards the mercenaries who are behind this wagon, and the wagon is coming in the opposite direction, but Raulerson can easily avoid the wagon at full charge because he's only this big and the wagon is that big, and all of you have come out of the aisles, which is a darn good thing, because the flaming wagon hurtles across the room. The crossbow bolts come at you all. Lashanta, take a knee. Or rather, a crossbow bolt took one of your knees out.
Oh.
Minus 4 hit points. Just boing! There's now a crossbow bolt sticking out of your kneecap. And you're going, ouchie! Or other holy... okay.
Yes, ow.
But the other 2 crossbow bolts whistled harmlessly past you. Tashram, you are casting a spell, and therefore are not mobile. But they are terrible shots. So 2 of them miss you, and the third one comes smack into you. But because you're casting a spell, and therefore waving your hands around, you only lose a slash across 2 fingers, as one of your hands, by sheer coincidence, brushes aside an incoming crossbow bolt, so you minus 1 hit point. 2 of your fingers are sort of half dangling, but your spell goes off and everything's fine, which leaves the valiant, heroic, holy charging Raulerson to take 2 natural 20s, and the other 2 missed. So, your holy armor protects you from being totally unmanned, but 2 crossbow bolts sort of lift and ventilate you as you run. Minus 8 hit points.
Good job I drank that healing potion earlier. I still have 1. I'm not going to let that slow my charge. I intend to cave in some heads.
You are charging with 2 crossbow bolts standing out of you in a rather interesting place.
Luckily, I always went for a codpiece that was 2 sizes too large.
And, well, it's now form-fitting, shall we say. Emphasizes the figure as you see.
Yes, my stride becomes shorter. I will swing my warhammer heavily and shout for the hammers of Tempest, for the shark!
As you crash amongst these mercenaries, who, having fired their volley of crossbows, have flung down the crossbows into your face and under your running feet, and are fleeing, all off to the left, the wagon lets out this huge explosion of steam as the water hits its flames, and then crashes into the chicken coops, which topple into the next row of chicken coops, and topple into the next row of chicken coops, and topple into the next row of... and the flames touch all the chicken poo, and there is this gigantic explosion. And could I have a D20 roll from all of you, please?
I rolled a natural 20.
14.
I didn't. I got a 4.
Okay, well, as it happens, you're okay because you're the farthest away from this explosion. You are, in fact, more than halfway across the chamber because your full tilt charge has carried you into the midst of the mercenaries. So all that happens to you is the force of the explosion snatches you off your feet and dumps you on your butt about 8 feet further on into the room, almost at the foot of the ramp. And so you crash and roll. Land on your butt, you slide, and then crash and roll. Your 2 companions, Tashram and Lashanta, are hurled bodily across the room by the force of the blast. Thankfully, you are there to cushion them. It's all rather holy. Crash, bang, tinkle, thump. And you finally tumble to a stop. To find yourselves, all 3 of you, nose to nose, with a trussed, gagged, and obviously furious. He's a nice shade of eye-popping, straining to speak purple, richly dressed man. He's standing, tied between two wagons, ropes around his neck leading to the rear of both wagons. So if the wagons get shoved apart, the ropes will break his neck and or behead him. Luckily for him, the mercenaries have all fled stage left while you were rolling and crashing helplessly, and they're all gone. They just vamoosed, leaving you alone with this purple man.
First of all, by the luck of Timora, we're all alive! Praise Timora! Second of all, oh my goodness, has anyone got like a knife or something? We need to free this man!
Yes, well, that's far be it from me to be the first person to ever say, let's not be hasty. But just because the mercenaries are gone, doesn't mean there isn't a trap in place here. He's still trussed up. Let's just examine things, make sure that if we try severing a rope, something worse isn't going to happen.
True. Ebonok, I presume?
You've never met Lord Ebonhawk before, but yeah, this guy could be a lord. He's dressed like a lord. He's got one of those little half capes, that, like a baldric festooning down your back on a diagonal with little pleats. This is not something that commoners wear because it would just get in the way and be soiled. So yeah, he's probably noble. He has the glittering codpiece with turn signals and landing lights that nobles favor and not too many other people in the realms.
I would recognize that codpiece anywhere.
Well said.
He's got the pointy-toed glitter boots that, again, normal people don't wear. Normal people who might encounter mud.
Out of interest, is this codpiece longer and more intact than my broken one?
Oh, yes.
I will gently unscrew his and affix it to my own. I'll say, I'll take that as part of payment.
His eyes are bulging in outrage now, until the codpiece comes off. And then it's as if he's trying to wink at you.
I wink back, depending on what I see. But there'll be time for that later.
Okay, what you see is a clout underneath, which is entirely covered with small mirrors. They're overlapping like armor. You've never seen armor of little mirrors before.
Must be of elven design. Let's survey this scene. Let's see whether there is some kind of winch or pulley or explosive hooked up so that if one of these ropes gets severed, he goes bye-bye.
True. Yeah, let's inspect. Rope to wagon.
I'm gonna take my last draft of healing potion because I am very close to passing out. Okay, 11 hit points returned, so I'm feeling stronger, more healthy and hearty.
And are you going to pull out the two while you are healing? Seize the moment, so to speak?
No, I'm going to allow my companions to definitely survey the scene. I'm far too paranoid now about traps, collapsing doors, rolling wagons, floating sharks, and man-eating eels to do anything without inspecting the room. This was clearly a trial put in my place by Tempus to advise restraint.
Yes, I sort of stay by Lashanta as I just sort of watch the ropes, look at everything, just start humming to myself.
Well, you notice that all of these wagons are empty, as in no cargo. There are no horses here. There are reins and harness for the horses chucked up at the front. There's a bench seat, stagecoach style, for each one of them, and the tack is all lying there. There are little wooden wedges on the stone floor, which is carved out of solid bedrock, to keep they chalked the wheels so they won't move, except for the one that they pulled the chocks and pushed. So the ropes go just to the tailgates of two of the wagons. It looks like they would use it as a bargaining, come closer, and he buys it. So you might, yes, want to sever those ropes or untie them or whatever you want to do in a hurry. But the wagons are not going to move.
Is he gagged?
Mm-hmm. He's gagged.
If I remove the gag, please don't scream.
He nods.
I'm going to undo the gag, my lord.
Yes, this is an outrage. This is a total outrage. I hope you let them get away. I hope you're going to do something about that. I am Lord Ebonhawk, and my ransom is 200,000 pieces of gold.
Lovely to meet you, Lord Ebonhawk. Did you by chance have a friend who you were speaking with in a room who then got beheaded, and then you were dragged down here via a magical teleportation device?
Yeah.
We've removed any risk of it not being him by telling him everything that just happened.
Why would he lie? I mean, 10 seconds ago he was tied to 2 wagons, which could...
I'm still tied up.
For all we know, he's a doppelganger.
I'm gonna wrap my hand. Lash will wrap her hand around one of the ropes so that she still has a hold of him, and then we'll flame blade slice each rope.
Oh, thank you. Could you free me? I will happily pay my ransom.
Well, we're not taking you hostage. We have already got a payment established.
Oh, who's paying you?
Some Cormyrian noble.
We've been sent to find you and retrieve you, but it does seem ill-wrought.
Well, ironically, we were actually tasked with finding out what had happened to you and your friend. We still don't really know what happened. Do you know who these mercenaries were?
No, they never seen them before in my life. I do not associate with mercenaries, you understand. I mean, I have my own bodyguards. Fat lot of use they were. No, I can tell you there were 9 of them, and there was a 10th, a wizard. Never seen him before, but he was obviously a wizard. He cast enough spells. He quite unmanned me. And, Wirvar, poor Wirvar. We'll never get that trade deal done now. I'll have to deal with his idiot son.
This wizard, was he casting spells just earlier this day?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then that gives us the advantage, my fellows. If we catch up to this wizard today, he may be in a weakened state.
That's true.
Right, well, Lord Ebonhawk, what we're going to do is we're going to free you now, and we're going to try and get you out of this place. We don't know where we are. We don't know how many more rooms of death await us, but I suppose you can aid us. Or just hide in the back, whichever you prefer.
Right. Please untie me. I feel vulnerable.
Tasharam, I would feel happier with at the very least his wrists bound together.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, Barrelgar.
Oh, you're that sort of priest, are you? Well, no, okay. I although I am irked by your manner, sensible people do not trust nobles. We are eminently untrustworthy, so I suppose I can't hold that against you. As a matter of fact, with my hands tied, I can't hold anything against you.
Well, it should be mentioned, my lord, that we have already encountered a pseudopod of some kind that was able to take another form, so yes, let's just go easy now, shall we?
All right.
Lead on, Tasharam, you're the one who seems to have all the luck.
Well, I have been awfully lucky today, what can I say? Clearly, the goddess has blessed me, but, well, you've been blessed by being with both myself and Lashanta.
Oh, prettily said. Sure you're not a courtier in another life.
My lord, what was the trade deal? What started all of this?
Oh, well, our 2 families, Ebonhawk and Wirvar, we've been competing to import cheap Sembian knickknacks, gewgaws, all right, sex toys, and into Cormyr, and we were competing, and we finally decided to stop competing, join forces, and enrich both of our fair houses more. by using the warehouse space and shipments rather than trying to undercut each other. And that's all it was. But it seems somebody else wanted our warehouses and shipping wagons.
So you didn't behead Wiravar?
One of them had it in a sack. And he's looking around and not seeing the sack, and neither are you. And as you look around, you notice something else is missing. Death is nowhere to be seen.
So, my lord, do you know
Yes.
anything about Crazy Talking Skull?
Oh, well, there was one several rooms back there that was some sort of trap lure, and it looked very much like the one that was floating at your shoulder, sir. But, a few moments ago, while you were, burning through my ropes and so on, it quietly behind your backs flew up that ramp. Didn't say a word, just drifted off. It sort of faded into the background until it thought you couldn't see. But you hadn't ungagged me, you see, and I couldn't do anything, and...
I just have to, and she'll give him one more tug, make sure this all isn't just your design.
I'm sorry?
Your dungeon, your pseudopod, your death head, your... No?
Good God! No! My goodness, was anything painted in proper colors? Was anything properly lit? Were
No.
there handy
No.
chairs to sit on and
No.
Anywhere? Did
No
you see any of
sideboards
those
for
things?
tea?
Well,
Nothing, no.
then.
And yet I struggle to believe that all of this happened over some dildo from Sembia deal.
That's not what it was meant to be about, and I have no idea who
And
these...
things
this-
just escalated, did they? That's where it ended up. Your trade deal ended up being... We have been down here risking our lives so that you can import, as you call them, knickknacks, although I've certainly heard them called more colourful things, from Sembia into Cormia under, a black market trade?
And why would Polarian care?
There were candies and sweeties and honey wine, and it was meant to be the complete package.
So, in other words, you are peddling in vice of all kind.
Oh, well, yes, we're nobles. That's what we do. Do you know anything of the world, man?
He's right.
And I assure you, I've never seen these opportunistic people before, but they seem to know Wirvar on sight. So, I mean, my guess, and it is merely that, a guess, that these were enemies of his, perhaps creditors, I don't know, rivals, and they seized upon this opportunity to, get ahead in this world.
Well, the moral of the story is you really need to check your superior safe rooms more often, because all of this seems to have been made really easy, that they had a portable teleportation spell that led you straight to a death trap dungeon full of death and horrors and...
It's that bloody suit of armor. That wasn't even either of ours. That was Drothglass. House Drothglass donated that. And they said it had enchantments all over it. It can provide light. It can warm the room. It can cool the room. It can, fresh ice for your drinks.
Well, we may have a route to some kind of a solution if House Drothglass implanted this cursed or blessed device inside your private Elysium as such. Maybe it was a trap all along. They intended for this to occur. Either way, it isn't our job to investigate in the depths of the Nine Hells, which is where it feels like we are right now, speaking as someone who's never been to the Nine Hells, and I imagine it would be far worse. So I suggest we go up that ramp, because upward means closer to the surface, and frankly, I'm getting hungry.
Well, very good. Hungry for chicken, perhaps?
No.
Well, there's
Funnily
plenty of
enough.
it roasting back there. Is there any chicken that's caught fire, scuttled in our direction, keeled over and died?
Oh, yeah.
In that case, I'll pick some up, and as I make my way up the ramp, I'll go up plucking and refilling my provisions pouch with some freshly cooked chicken. It's going to stink, but it's not going to smell much worse than I do.
Well, it's actually easy to pluck, because once it's been crisped, the skin comes off and with the feathers, leaving you with this, looks more pinkish than most people would like, but fully cooked, I assure you.
It won't be the first time I've had worms.
Are you leading the way up the ramp?
Yes, we'll lead. We'll start walking and talking.
So the ramp curves. It is obvious from the condition of the cobbled ramp under your boots that wagons have traversed this many times. Turn the corner and ascend the ramp, and you can see daylight ahead.
Oh, fake Timora, possibly an exit. I begin moving forwards, but of course immediately am full of paranoia and begin looking around, perhaps expecting a bunch of mercenaries to jump on us at any moment.
Did we recognize any kind of livery on those mercenaries? No, they were all motley, weren't they?
They looked like a ragtag bunch of ruffians, Lashanta.
My kind of people.
Also, actually, a very weird part of all this is that we were hired to come and look for you, and yet it almost seemed planned that we would end up in said area where you were to be brutally murdered.
Valerian?
I resemble that remark, says Polarian, stepping into view.
Oh, flame blade out.
Above you on the ramp, and there are purple dragons stepping out beside him. And they're all standing there, you know, the sort of police, you're familiar with this from city watches all over Waterdeep, where they sort of swagger, and then they hook their thumbs through their belts on either side of the belt buckle. We're in charge here, and we stride about the world with our legs never closer than 3 feet apart. Perps. You know, that sort of look, okay? So they sort of form a wall across the ramp. And Polarian says, "Good. You got him out alive. Well done. Payment in full shall be yours."
Wonderful. Well, Polaria, where the hell are we? Why didn't you tell us there was a nice entrance that you could just find as you found yourself?
I had no idea that where they took the Lord from the Unicorn Chamber would wind up here. It wasn't until this rather spectacular explosion rocked 2 blocks of the city, and I was summoned, hence my breathless condition. He doesn't look breathless at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not buying a
hence
minute
my
of this.
breathless condition, that I had any inkling of your whereabouts, or even that you had anything to do with it, until I heard your dulcet tones coming up the ramp.
I'm going to look at Ebon and see what the relationship is between the two of them.
Ebon Hawk is looking at Polarian with polite disdain, as if Polarian has broken up one too many parties, but can't be slapped down, okay? Because Polarian he's the dragon emissary of the war wizards. He can do bad things to any noble, and he's one of the few people in the kingdom who can, short of the royal magician or the royal family. So he's sort of like, oh, bloody hell, sort of thing, you know. So he's sort of looking at Polarian with not disguised loathing. And Polarian is saying, "So, you survived, my lord. How prudent of you." Lord Ebonhawk said, "Right, well, being as you're paying them, I don't have to pay my ransom, do I?" And he says, "Yes, they are being quite handsomely compensated at the crown's expense for your survival. I dare say they'll be set for life."
Well, that's awfully good, because we very nearly died several times. You really want to get the statue checked out in that room. It teleports people into a custom-made dungeon, which was filled with traps, monsters, talking skulls, mercenaries, a wizard somewhere.
Oh, all the modern conveniences. Well, we'll certainly check it out.
I'm sure Lord Ebonhawk can tell you a little about the magic that went into that. He seemed to know who installed it there.
I disagree, sir. I merely have my suspicions. I know not the details. I don't truck in air sharks. I don't truck in talking skulls that claim to be archliches.
Speaking of talking skulls, Polarian, did you happen to see a wayward floating skull?
Polarian says, no.
Death, where are you? Where'd you go?
Yeah, you shouldn't call that out on the streets of Cormier.
Death, where are you?
Someone might answer, someone with a sick sense of humor.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, a middle-aged lady is tripping past, and she says, "Oh, Death, where is thy sting? Go on, say the rest of it."
Wait for the show, 8 o'clock. Death!
And she grounds her parasol, obviously a patron of the arts, wanting, "Oh, this is a play! Oh, who are you?"
Be gone, old woman. This is business.
Oh, manners.
And she sees Polarian, and she goes, "Oh, I do have to be somewhere internalized." And she scuttles away. And Polarian says, "Right, how about we go somewhere rather more private, rather than discussing this in the middle of the public street, and I can get you paid, and then, the crown would be most happy if you sort of departed Suzail as quickly as you can. We can have that return caravan that you're supposed to escort made ready at the crown's expense."
All I ask in advance is a bath.
Can you wiggle your fingers, do something here, please? Appearance and perfume.
Let me summon one of my fellow war wizards who is an expert in such regard, and makes nobles and envoys presentable at court. And perhaps if you'd like to come into the royal palace.
Oh, of course.
And gold-plated baths full of hot and cold running servants.
I clap Lord Ebonhawk on the arm as we may be parting ways here. Well, farewell, Ebonhawk, and good fortune to you and your butt-plug business. I do hope that every fortune meets you and that your deal with the Wayward Lord's son is again to your best fortune.
I thank you. I thank you for my rescue, and if you're ever in Suzail again, look me up. I'm sure we can drain some wineskins together.
Yes, we'll look for the castle with the pink sign out front.
One of them.
I suppose the only mystery for me, but doesn't really matter, I'm happy to be on my way, is, in your own opinion, why would the kidnappers want to kidnap the individuals, but then leave a statue which teleports you deep into their lair? But in an area where obviously they were ready, because they were ready for us, they were fully prepared. Every single room, it's like they were there to crossbow bolt us and crossbow bolt us again.
Well, it's like this. I'm sure you were not expected. You were the God's X Factor, so to speak. I'm sure they were expecting our relatives to be sent to rescue us, so they could get us all one after the other. And if not that, then war wizards and purple dragons, and then it's sort of like, well, we can always rid the realm of some more war wizards. That's always a good thing, you see. So if you're a lawless brigand, and you can take down several scores of the authorities, the law keepers, it's a good thing. And in lieu of that, they would get more of both our families. I'm going to lean on Polarian here after you're gone to thoroughly investigate who these people might have been, because if they will do this to two eminent noble families of the realm, what else are they plotting?
I guess you might want to start with Drothglass, if that's who gave you the party favor in the drawing room.
House Drothglass, I would never have thought it of. But one never knows, does one? behind this fair smiling mask of anyone you meet could be foul corruption.
I'll wink at him and say, one never knows.
Well, Ash, I suppose your dear friend probably has gone to be free, perhaps to go and scream death to children and innocents and
nuns,
until eventually a priest of Tempest smashes his skull in, literally.
True.
That's right.
I'll miss that crazy skull.
Lord Ebonhawk, Polarian frees his last bonds, and he hustles off in a protective ring of purple dragons, and the rest of the purple dragons and Polarian conduct you to the palace for baths and full payments. You are going to be rich beyond the dreams of avarice.
Well, Baragar, all it took was a few scratches on the finger and a few lucky scrapes with death, eh?
And a few crossbow quarrels in there.
Yes, that's all it took you, at least. What Ebonhawk didn't point out was I came away with his glittering codpiece. If I feel there was a true treasure here, it's that I can tell a tale honestly, that I carved my way out from the bowels of a shark and came away with a glittering codpiece longer than the one I started with.
That is a fishtail.
When you remove the codpiece to avail yourself of the baths, you do notice that it has clipped to the inside, the private side, 3 keys.
I wondered what that uncomfortable rubbing was. I didn't want to make a fuss while we were, adventuring.
But what are they keys to? That'll be a further adventure.
The keys in the codpiece tail.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played The Mystery of the Unicorn Chamber for Dungeons & Dragons and the Forgotten Realms. Our Dungeon Master was none other than the creator of the Forgotten Realms himself, Ed Greenwood, and we were also joined by the Gentleman Gamer Matthew Dawkins and Liisa Lee. The music was created by Ager Sonis and was used with permission from their label, Cryo Chamber. We also used music from Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 by Michael Honig, used with permission from Beamdog. If you aren't already playing the enhanced editions of these classic games, now is a great time to begin. We would also like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, and David for their generous support. And we'd of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult Divinity Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and see you soon again.